Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Rooted and Rested podcast. I'm Natanya. So lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me. Really excited to see you and hear your stories, your comments, your questions. I actually had someone ask me a question that's taking me a little bit off piste today. So I'm actually going in a slightly different direction than what I planned for this episode. But essentially, actually, a few people asked me, okay, you're talking about the nervous system, you're talking about like trauma, but like, what even is all that? Like, we don't even know, like, you're going too fast, like, slow down. So, what I thought I would do today is just do a little bit of an introduction, both to me, but also to trauma informed nervous system work, which is what I do and what I love to talk about and what I love to support people through. So, we're going to do a little bit of a different vibe today than what I've previously talked about. I hope that's okay. This is essentially a 101 for introducing you to me, but also to what I do and what this is all about. I understand that there is a lot of people out there talking a lot about nervous system health, but there's also a lot of people out there that are like, I'm hearing about this, but I don't really get it. So this is for you. So, like I said at the beginning, my name is Natanya. I am a mom of three teenagers. I have a husband, and I have lived a lot of my adult life in the Middle East. We moved there when my first two children were babies. One of them learned to walk there, and my third was born there. And I have always been a super creative person. My life basically revolved around music until COVID. I was a full-time musician. I wrote books, I traveled, I was talking, I was a speaker, and I was an artist, and I had this whole world that was very creative. I was coaching a lot of women, increasingly to do with business and particularly the back end of business and being very ordered and creating order in the chaos. That's always something that I think is key to creativity, is actually having some order. And so I was very creatively fulfilled, let's say. And all of that changed overnight when COVID hit and everything was shut down. Um, all of a sudden, I wasn't traveling. That was a big part of how, you move yourself forward in that world. And it all just collapsed overnight. And interestingly, one of the things I was consistently noticing at the time with coaching clients was how much this order and ordering your world so that you can have your creativity, how much that was starting to impact and always be brought back to people's spaces and their homes. So I had actually purchased a course online in interior design before COVID hit. So when everything collapsed and stopped at the start of COVID, I was like, well, what can I do? So I just kind of thought, well, I've got this course sitting here, so I might as well get on with it. So I jumped into doing this course, and thankfully it was all online, which was perfect for COVID. And over the following few months, it became obviously to all of us increasingly clear that this was not going to be a couple of weeks. And what essentially I came to terms with during COVID was that chapter of my life that focused on music and writing and speaking and traveling was over. And it was a very, very painful thing to go through. I did feel like my right arm had been cut off. And I would say I'm still working through some of that difficulty. But essentially, on the day that I completed my exams for this interior design course that I had taken, my next door neighbour, who was an architect, happened to be talking to my husband outside, socially distanced, of course, but he did chat with him, and my husband happened to mention to him that I had just completed these exams and had just passed my course, and I was now qualified as an interior designer, and he hired me on the spot to work for him in his architectural firm. So I was thrown completely in the deep end when it came to working projects. I'd gone from this being very theoretical, and really I had planned to do this qualification so I could help women order their worlds so they could have their creativity or their business or whatever it was I was coaching them for. To being a full-time interior designer, which was actually not really ever my plan. But I absolutely loved it. I very quickly started going to visit sites, looking at building. I could visualize all of the interiors of homes just from looking at the building plans, which I absolutely loved working with plans because I could see everything. Um, so I loved doing this work. I went with him all over the country, learned all this vocabulary, did it all in a different language as well, um, and really started to develop my own take, my own style, my own direction that I wanted to go in, and started getting my own clients. Um, and I did that for several years and had a real niche and absolutely loved it. And my big thing was creating sanctuaries, creating peace, creating order, but also creating stories. I love this idea that your home is part of your story and it's where you find your belonging. And so while there is a difference that a lot of people react negatively, well, actually, I think I would say most people, if not all people, respond negatively to clutter. We do need some bits and bobs around because they are part of what makes us feel like the space is part of our story, whether it's a photograph or a piece of art or a beautiful jug or whatever it is. It's those little pieces that make us and our space connected. And that does a lot. We'll get to it, but that does a lot for our nervous system. Huge, huge amounts. So, anyway, this was what I specialized in. It was a little bit modern country in style, which also in the Middle East is less, common. So, I developed a very clear niche and a very clear clientele. I had very clear strategies for communication, for transparency, for high-end finishes, for I have a little bit OCD when it comes to perfection. Like I'm not going to leave your bathroom covered in grout. Like it's going to be perfect. I developed a turnkey white glove service where clients would walk in and it was styled and it looked like a magazine and it was just I absolutely loved my job. Anyway, alongside of this job, I was really starting to develop some uh basically burnout. We were in the Middle East without a huge amount of support for a long time, and there were many, many, many contributing factors, but essentially um right up to the last 3 months that we were there, my oldest child was very, very suddenly taken sick with sepsis, and was rushed to an ICU where he very, very nearly didn't make it. And I think that event was the straw that broke the camel's back, in that we just needed a break. It was still home. We knew we were going to go back, but we needed a break. We needed a change of scenery. We needed to reassess. We needed to heal. We needed to sort some things out in ourselves. And we left and came to the UK 2.5 years ago now. And really, that changed everything again because I actually came to the UK with a whole ton of projects lined up. My clients that wanted to retain my services while, even though I was going to be far away, they were happy for me to do it from distance and to fly in and to continue. And I had a whole I was still getting requests, even though I was going to be living in a different place. And the war that broke out on October 7th, 2023, was really, really what absolutely killed, again, my entire business. All of the clients I had lined up and signed, obviously, they needed to take a pause. Most of them ended up saying, we're actually not going to move forward with the project at all. Or they needed to work with someone who was on the ground because there were no flights. So I lost my business again overnight. And I think that one really, really hit me because I was unable to get any kind of work in the UK. I was applying left, right, and centre. I have a great CV. I've done a lot, but the expectations and requirements for the UK are very, very different from what I'd been experiencing for the past 15 years. And I just couldn't find work. So again, I took stock. What do I do? I can't just do nothing. So I kind of really started to unpack myself. I was going through my own recovery process, I guess. I was having counseling, and I was learning a lot about myself, my my situation, how I ended up in this position of being completely burned out like this, and started unpacking a lot of really deep things in myself and my story, my history, my childhood. All kinds of things were coming to the surface that were really important for me to be aware of that I hadn't ever been aware of. So it's been a very, very important couple of years for us to be withdrawn and removed, for us to take stock and to do a lot of recovering and healing and being a bit restored as people. We are moving back in the summer, but essentially during this 2.5 years, I have understood that my passion through life for working with trafficking survivors was not specifically about the trafficking and more to do with the trauma. And it really helped me understand that because actually what I started to see was all these clients I was having where they were coming to me and they were so stressed by their homes and so like it was really affecting them on a deep way. Um, it was not always to do with, I don't like the color of this bedroom. It was deeper than that. Something about their home was not allowing them to relax. It was not allowing them to feel at home in their own space. And I started to see that increasingly, especially with hindsight, these people were carrying a lot of trauma and they were not able to recover from that in the space that they were living in. So while understanding that my passion for trauma was not only reserved for these group of people, but actually a bit more broader than that, I jumped into studying and finding anything I could. I've just spent 2.5 years immersing myself in understanding trauma, trauma recovery, and landing into this course on somatic trauma-informed coaching. Coaching is something I've known for a long, long time. I've been coaching women for years. I've done business coaching. I've done all kinds of things that, this is a comfortable zone for me to operate in. And so to bring in this somatic trauma informed lens really kind of just sparked it just ticked every box for me. And then within that, I specialized in neuroaesthetics, which is all to do with the surroundings that we live in and how they can affect you and how they can help or hinder trauma recovery. So I started to just be able to bring all these threads together, which really, really was exciting for me because it just felt like for years I have told myself, Nat, you're just a jack of all trades and a master of none. And you're over here and you're over here and you've done this and you've done that. And finally, it felt like a lot of these threads were being pulled together into a cohesive, actual thing that makes sense. And so now my business is part coaching and part interior design, but they both feed each other. Like when I have an interior design client, a lot of the work that we do is the coaching. And when I have coaching, a lot of the work we do has to do with their surroundings. So they might have a slightly different focus, we might have a slightly different end result, but they very much overlap, which is exciting to me because I'm very passionate about both. So, what is this trauma work that we're talking about? Well, essentially, to break it down, I think one of the things that I've understood while doing this training that I've been going through over the past couple of years is how misunderstood and how little information has been given to us about how we work. I think the Western medical profession and, industry has very much split mental health and physical health. And so let's just take anxiety as an example of this. You will have a person who is having an anxiety attack. There are very physical representations to what that looks like. They might be having a panic attack. They might just completely freeze as a person. Who knows? There's all kinds of ways that anxiety manifests itself in the body, but the important thing is that it is in the body. It isn't something that you can talk your way out of. You can look back on it and try and analyze it and try and understand it, but in the moment, you cannot tell somebody to switch off their anxiety. It is something that the body is doing to them, and it's not in their control. So I don't understand how that is a mental health issue. There is a mental health part to it, but it's a physically led response. So the way that we have in the West decided to deal with this issue is to have counselling and drugs. the drugs to treat the physical and the counseling to talk through the mental. But the problem is, this is not a rational thing that you can reason with. So, what is the talking going to address? It might help you talk about how you're going to feel about the fact that you have these responses. And the physical, taking the drugs, it may manage it, but it's not dealing with why. Why is your body doing that in the first place? And what nervous system work does, it's particularly somatic, which means the body, somatic, so bringing the body into the trauma informed, which means understanding what trauma does to the body and the mind, bringing them together. If you bring all those pieces together, what you have is a complete view of what's happening in a person, as opposed to let's talk about this bit and take drugs for that bit. It brings the two together. So, for example, with anxiety, um, if you take a person as a whole person, they are experiencing their world. We as humans experience our world physically before we do mentally. Your body interprets the data it has around itself faster than your thought life does, which is why you will respond to danger without having to tell yourself to. So there is a part of your brain called the amygdala. It is the size of an almond and it is your radar system. It is constantly scanning all of your surroundings for danger. Now, what we need to also remember is that we, through life, let's call it a backpack. Everything we go through in life is something that gets added to our backpack from day one. Your birth story can add something to your backpack. Most people carry a birth trauma to some kind, and it will vary massively from person to person. But the point is, everything we go through, all of our experiences, they bring us to today, and all of the things that we carry in that backpack is they're like lenses that we interpret the world through. And your brain and your neural pathways are trained by what is in that backpack. So sometimes your amazing amygdala, which is scanning your world, will look through the lens of something you've been through and think, that is just like this. And this was dangerous. So that must be dangerous. And your body goes into a stress response or a trauma response to something that may not be dangerous. Your brain, your amygdala may have misinterpreted that piece of information. It may not have. And that is the point is if your amygdala is working, your body is working. It's doing what it should be doing. And I think one of the things I'm most passionate about is helping people understand that they're not broken. There's not something wrong with them. It's just sometimes our brain misinterprets information and sends us into a response which isn't rational. It's not something that is to do with intelligence. It's reptilian, it's survival mode. It's absolute basic instinct to respond to that. There is always work we can do to help rewire those neural pathways, and that is what my work is all about. But the point is that our brains are designed to respond physically before it does mentally. So, and that your amygdala is connected to our vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is your biggest nerve system in the whole body. It connects your brain to your organs, which is why when you feel in danger, when your body goes into a danger response, which is called a sympathetic response, that means that your body has released cortisol. That means that that part of your brain, through the vagus nerve, has connected to the organs that release and the glands that release adrenaline and cortisol into your body. Your heart rate speeds up because that part of your brain, through the vagus nerve, is connected to your heart. It's connected to your lungs. It's connected to all of your organs. So you cannot separate these parts in medicine where it's physical for this and mental for that. They are completely connected. You don't tell your body, right, I need to speed up my heart rate right now because I need to run. Your body knows that. It's completely automatic. So it used to be that we thought that our body had an option, a menu, if you like, of responses to danger. We could do fight or flight, or we could do freeze or fawn, and we just pick which one is going to be best in the moment. But recent research has actually proven that it works very differently and it's more like a progression. So the immediate response is going to be fight or flight. That is a flooding of your system with cortisol and adrenaline. And remember, how your brain interprets the world around you is entirely through the lenses of the things you're carrying around in your backpack. All those experiences you've had through your life, all of those things you're carrying around, all of those things that have shaped you into who you are today, both positively and negatively, your brain is interpreting everything around you through the lenses of all of those things, which is why sometimes our brain gets it wrong. And those are the moments where we need to pay attention to what's happening in our body. And that is something people don't do. So our body gets flooded with cortisol and adrenaline and moves us ready to run away or fight a danger. That is why you're pumped, your heart rate is going, your palms are clammy, your breathing is shorter, and you're ready. It's like it's actually the fact that your body is flooding itself with cortisol and adrenaline. This is something you actually need in daily life. For example, when you go to the gym, you need to have a bit of cortisol in order to get yourself pumped. It's not a bad thing. Your body is actually doing exactly what it needs to do, and it's doing a brilliant job of it. So, but then our body can also detect whether or not that response has made it feel safe. Has it worked? Can we now calm down because we're now safe, because fight or flight has helped? And if it hasn't, your body will progress into freeze. Now, freeze is not, it's not just like what A or B or C or D. You progress through fight or flight into freeze. Because what happens when you reach freeze is your brain has decided, no, I still don't feel safe. Fight and flight hasn't worked here. What we need to do now is basically go into dead possum mode. So your whole body slows down. Dead possum mode, in case you don't know what that is the possum, when it feels in danger, it acts dead. It basically just totally lies, like it pretends to be dead, and everything in it slows down. Your body goes into preservation mode. Let's just protect our major organs. Everything slows down. You might feel completely numb. You might not, your heart rate will slow right down. Everything slows and numbs, and that's your freeze. Um, so actually, in order to come back down to regulated, you have to go back through the fight or flight mode in terms of what's happening internally in your body. Now, how do we do that? Usually something physical. This is the thing about somatic work with the body. Physical makes a difference. If you are in one of these, if you're in a stress or trauma response, the way to interrupt the narrative, especially when it is incorrect, is to start noticing it, start paying attention to sensation and interrupt it with something physical because it disrupts the neural pathway. It cuts across it and gives the brain new information. So splashing your face with water or shaking yourself out to get rid of energy, or going for a walk, putting your feet flat on the ground so you can actually feel really grounded. These are all things that you can do to calm your body down and bring it back to regulated. But if you get yourself into freeze, the danger with freeze is that we can get stuck there. And that is often something I see. People who've gone way past fight or flight and they're just stuck in, it's called functional freeze. They are operating completely normally, but on the inside, they are numb. They don't ever have energy. They are stuck in functional freeze. And in order to get your body to actually come down again, you have to interrupt it. You have to rewrite the narrative. You have to interrupt those processes with something physical because our body is responding and we have to interrupt the body with something for the body. So it's a fascinating world to be involved in, and I think we've actually done ourselves a great disservice in the West by separating mental and physical health because we don't pay attention to our bodies because we can think our way out of everything. And kids at school, they have mental health issues. They don't think about what their body is telling them. Your body will always lead the way. It will always tell you the truth. It cannot lie. It cannot trick you. It might misinterpret things. Um, it might when I say misinterpret things, it might tell you that you're in danger when you're not because it's reading through a lens that isn't relevant to this. It will think that it's in the same danger that it remembers in your backpack from before. It will interpret the situation as the same as that when you're not. That is a neural pathway issue which you can work on and you can change. That is what my job is. But the point is that your body is doing the right thing. It is learning, and the body can't lie. It's not tricking you. It's doing its job. And so to disconnect these two, to me, is really a disservice and quite damaging to people's mental health and well-being. And actually, it's so empowering to start understanding what your body is trying to tell you. I think that was such a revolutionary thing for me. I spent years in complete disconnect with my body. In fact, I actually went to my counselor and said to her, I think I might be dissociated because I keep hearing people talk about, oh, I just felt this in my body. I've never felt that in my body. And oh, I just knew I'm feeling super hormonal today. And I'm like, I don't know what that was. I have no idea what that feels like. I wouldn't be able to tell you any ever what my hormones are doing just from how I feel. I don't feel anything. And I actually think I was dissociated from my body. I was completely out of connection, out of touch with anything going on inside my body. And so my counseling process, along with the studying that I was doing, the two together, it was like bringing all these things together that I had never, ever heard of, let alone experienced. So really, I'm super passionate about pulling these things that I've learned, these truths that I've learned about home and about environment, just even down to things like lighting. Lighting has an enormous effect on our mental health. Huge. The wrong wattage, the wrong shade of light, or white, the wrong height of light has how it interrupts our circadian patterns. Like this is massively impacting on our well-being, and it's not talked about ever. Your home has a direct effect on your nervous system. Your nervous system will be reading your home before your brain or your eyes or your taste picks up on anything. And so that's something that I'm really, really passionate about. But I think also just empowering people with information. Like this was the thing I found so liberating about my studies. I was sat there every week going, I can't believe I didn't know this. How did I not know this? How is it possible that the biggest nerve system in my body is something I've never learned? I never learned about this at school. Never heard of this before. The vagus nerve? Never heard of that. I think possibly now, I mean, my kids had heard of the nervous system, but I don't think they'd understood how it worked and how they could actually benefit from understanding this. Um, so that is my kind of introduction, my 101 introduction to all of this. I know it should probably have been episode one, but I'm very grateful for the people who've pointed out that it would actually be really helpful to have this spelled out from zero. I think what I am fascinated by inside of the world of the nervous system is how these things we carry in our backpack, these things, these lenses we interpret the world, how they form behaviors, how they end up becoming habits and responses to things without us even realizing. And actually, I've had some clients where they've come to me with a specific thing they want to talk about. This is a problem I've had in my relationship. And we will talk through what is going on in those moments they're struggling with. And we'll unpack how, yes, okay, these are my emotions, but what's your body doing? What is happening? Tell me all the sensations that you're having in that moment. And then when they actually put that together and think about that isolated almost on its own, what these physical sensations I'm having, they can often identify the first time they experience that group of sensations. And it's often got absolutely nothing to do with the person they've come to talk about today. And it's all to do with this incident that happened when they were 7 years old, when their body learned to interpret these things in this way. And something about this current situation has re-triggered that, and they're behaving as if they were 7 in that moment. They're reliving, their body is reliving the same set of criteria, if you like, for that response. And that's the thing I find so fascinating, because then they can actually go, do you know what? When I was 7 and this happened, this is how I felt. This is clearly what I learned. My body's learned to interpret these things in this way. I can actually work with that. I can actually undo that. I can actually retrain my brain so that when these things happen now, I don't do the same thing again. I can recognize it in the moment, and I can actually have a completely different response. I've experienced that in my world over and over and over again in the last couple of years, as I've learned these things and as I've put these lenses across the coaching that I do, and the interior design clients that I do have. Is an absolutely, it's empowering and it's liberating to understand yourself better and to understand what it is that's going on. You are actually functioning exactly correctly. There's nothing wrong, there's nothing broken, and actually you can adjust and fix and learn so much about yourself. And that is why I created the coaching program that I have. It's also called Rooted and Rested. It's a 6-month program for people that want to move from this survival, burnout, awful place where they don't understand their own responses. They don't understand why they're like this, and they're drained all the time, or they're exhausted all the time, or they come home from holiday and they're just even more exhausted. There's so many types of responses that people feel and are the catalyst for why they come to this kind of coaching. But it's all about unpacking that and starting to actually learn your body and learn what it's telling you and understand what it's saying and adjust accordingly and dig into that and work with that, so that you can come out on the other end and be actually a really at peace, regulated, grounded person that can stretch because it's not going to break you, and that can thrive because you're no longer stuck in survival mode, and sleep properly because you've actually adjusted and listened to your body and actually worked with it. So that is what I do, alongside of the trauma recovery focused interior design clients, where I actually go to their homes. I actually do a whole audit with them on their nervous system, what they need, what they feel like, what their body is doing, and we design a home that works with that. It gives them a space that actually helps them recover. So yeah, that is my little 101 introduction from zero, about me, how I'm here, and what I do. There's going to be lots more we talk about. There's going to be guests, there's going to be all kinds of things, but that is a kind of basic introduction to you, your body, your nervous system, what it's doing. And I'll see you in the next episode. Please let me know if there are questions or specific things that you've gone through that you'd like to share or ask about. I love hearing from you and what you think. So feel free to drop comments. And I really look forward to chatting more in the next episode.